Hey guys.
Hello all.
Hey Chris. How is how is everyone?
Hey Via.
Can people mute and unmute or no?
Yes,
Hi.
they can.
Oh, okay.
They're just shy, Chris.
Everyone's just shy. No one wants to say good afternoon.
Good morning. Good afternoon.
Oh, it is morning. What am I talking about? Let me tell you. When your day starts at 5, 11 is actually 3 p.m. So it is straight up afternoon for me here on the Pacific coast. All right, we're gonna give it just a few seconds as people show up. Good morning, Amy. Jason.
Oh, I'm gonna be hello.
Anne Fry. Matt, good to see your face again.
Good morning. Zach, I owe you a call. I'll call you after this.
Kristen Rader, looking athletic. Can I say that?
Kristen Rader, how are you?
She's muted, but she's in the
muted.
office.
Via, can I just share with you?
I never know how to unmute quickly. Sorry.
Who's talking?
Dinosaur. I'm good. How is everybody here?
Good.
Via, can I just share with you how much I love empire building?
Oh, thank you.
I look forward to that podcast every week.
Aww, thank you. This was a wild one this week. It was pretty trippy having that air.
If you guys haven't listened to it, you'll learn a little bit more about Via. There's a few things that you could hold against her for the future. So if I were you, I would download that episode and figure out your new leverage. All right, guys, we're gonna jump in.
This podcast is really, really good. It was so good, and I'm super picky about podcasts for obvious reasons. And I mean it. It's so solid and so good. I highly recommend subscribing. It's Experience is the name of it.
All right, guys, thanks, Via. We're gonna jump in. Appreciate you taking some time. Today's session is gonna be a little bit different. I'm gonna have a conversation with you guys, and so I'm gonna ask that you mute and self-mute. I want to keep it as clean as possible. Leslie, if you can help me out along the way, if there's some background noise, I'm gonna be able to shut everything off except your faces, guys. I want to be able to see your faces, so I'm not going to be able to watch chat or have my participant panel up. But here's where we're at on June 17th, 2021. I think it's fair to look around the room and say, hey, I'm tired. It's fair to say that. And if you're if you're here this morning and saying, no, I'm not tired, well, congratulations, but I am certain there's someone in your world that is. Right? If you're not tired because you wake up every day with ridiculous energy and your mission is so big, but that's driving you, and that's fine. And I love that. But what I am constantly hearing every single day from someone that's willing and open and honest is that I'm tired or my people are tired. And so today I want to talk about just a couple things. I want to talk about time. And I actually want to talk about a tactical strategy that we can use personally. We can actually go back to our teams and teach this strategy. If I were you after today, I would set up a time with my director of operations or whoever's in my leadership team or who's supporting me, all of my agents potentially, take a step back and say, hey, let's talk about this and let's talk about how do we implement this each week or each month or each day in our business. So we're going to talk about time. But then I actually want to have a conversation around what burnout is, where burnout comes from, and potentially how do we avoid, manage burnout, and why that shows up potentially in our world. Cool. So our first conversation around time comes from a book that I read, and don't write it down. You don't have to read it because I'm gonna give you the best part of it today. But Rory Vaden wrote a book, and his book is Procrastinating on Purpose. Now, some of you are like, oh, give me that book, because I love that word. Like if I can have permission to procrastinate, I am in. And he gives us permission to procrastinate in his book, but for a different reason. Anyone else know what he may have written? Vaden, does that name ring a bell? He wrote a book called Take the Stairs. Now, if you're going to read one of his books, read that one. What is the premise of Taking the Stairs? Why is that good advice, right? Just think from a physical perspective or from a business perspective. What does taking the stairs mean? What's the underlying current there? Take the stairs.
Don't take the elevator. Get a little exercise and clear your head and move your body.
100%, right? So you went to the reasons of why not to take the elevator, but why do people take the elevator? They take the elevator because it's easier. There's less effort, right? There's less energy, right? My legs don't need to do work. His premise in that book is those that are successful take the stairs. They're willing to do the difficult work. They're willing to power through. They're willing to exert the extra energy. They take the stairs. Now I look around this room. There's not anybody that would be invited to this room if they didn't take the stairs. Now, some of us have taken the stairs for years and all of a sudden we've stopped taking the stairs, or some of us just started taking the stairs and we look around and like some of us have had big businesses for a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades. Some of us just started taking the stairs and we're 1 year, 2 year, or 3 years in. But his premise in that is do the work. Now, years later, he realized that if all we do is take the stairs, then we're going to burn out. And so his conversation around procrastinating on purpose came because at this point in your career, you've probably mastered Covey's conversation around urgent and important. In your business, what do you want to focus on, the urgent or the important? From Covey's perspective. Yeah, Via says it's important. I saw Heather, she was muted, but I saw her mouth say important. Why? Because if we focus on the important, we should be able to avoid the urgent, right? This is how we want to define these two terms. If you're taking notes, urgent is how soon does it matter? Important is how much does it matter? Urgent, how soon, important, how much? Now, after today, I want those two things to not matter at all. But I want us to think about urgent, important, and then significant. For us, at your level in your business right now, the conversation is significant. And the question around that word, right? Urgent, how soon does it matter? Important, how much does it matter? Significant, how long will this matter? How long will this matter? Is what I'm doing significant, which in translation means, is what I'm doing, does it matter, and how long will it matter? We need to stop thinking about how much it matters or how soon it matters and start thinking about how long will this matter. Now, here's what happens. Activity now gets put on a timeline. Activity gets put on a timeline that we could look out into the future and say, will this matter a week from today? Will this matter a month from today? Will this matter 6 months from today, a year from today, 5 years from today, a decade from today? That is where we can layer in the question of whether or not what we're doing is significant to your business or not. In the book, he says that significant humans are multipliers. They aren't managing their time. They are multiplying their time. And he calls this the significance calculation. If we can figure out how long will what I am doing matter, then you will figure out or you will unlock the significance calculation. So multipliers say, what are the things that I can do today that will make the biggest impact on tomorrow? Not today, but tomorrow. What are the things that I can do that will make the biggest impact on tomorrow? What do you think prevents us? Guys, let's open that up. What do you think prevents us from doing today what will impact tomorrow, as opposed to doing today what impacts today? What prevents us?
I think if our thinking isn't strategic, if it's just reactionary, if we don't have a plan, then we're just going to react to whatever comes in front of us.
Yeah. So first we get into reaction. And Zach said, it also means that we're not really focused on a plan, because a plan is always, a plan isn't for today, a plan is for the future. Fair? So there's something that got us off of that plan, which put us into reactionary mode. Why else? Why else is it hard for us as human beings, as business owners, to focus on doing something today that affects the future?
Instant gratification.
Sure, we've talked a lot about that, haven't we? Instant gratification, one of my favorite conversations. I'm not going to go there today because I've done it enough, but yes, yeah, we want instant gratification, especially in the real estate business, right? What I do today gives me a deal today. What I do today saves a deal today. What I do today, like, it doesn't matter what it is. So much of that actually prevents impact. Does that affect our willingness to go out and look for talent? Does that affect our willingness to sit down with our director of operations and develop them and train them and coach them and spend time with them? Does that impact our willingness to take on a new agent? Does that impact our willingness to sit down and spend time with our buyer's agents or listing agents? Does that impact our willingness to do our one-on-ones? Like, who has time for those? I don't like those. And that's only because, go back to Covey, we're in urgent or important, and we're not thinking about significance. We're not thinking about how that human being can significantly impact your business well more than a single client or a single deal. Fair? What else? What else prevents us from focusing on significance? What prevents us from focusing on what to do today that'll impact us 6 months from today, 3 months from today, even 2 weeks from today?
I think sometimes we haven't actually defined what that preferred future looks like. So we don't know where we're going. So we don't actually know what is significant today.
Clarity. Do you think that affects some of your people right now as well?
Oh, yeah.
A year into this market, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of home showings behind us, 30, 40 offers written behind us for a couple deals. Do you think that clarity gets real fuzzy? Yeah, you know what Vaden says? He says it's emotional permission. Emotional permission to spend time on things today that create more time tomorrow. Right now, it will cost me time today, but it will create time tomorrow. Man, that is hard for us to give ourselves emotional permission. For our people, understand your buyer's agents and your listing agents and your partners to have emotional permission to work on things today that create something tomorrow. Now, it is, I promise you, as difficult it is for you, it is more difficult for them. It is more difficult for them because they may be struggling in ways that they don't even share with you. Right? They may be struggling financially and you think, no, how could they be? You may not know. And maybe you do know, but when you struggle in any area of your life, we do not give ourselves emotional permission to work on things today. Like, I actually think that the reason why people don't lead gen is because lead gen is future. Lead gen isn't going, they do not believe, or very rarely will it show up as something tomorrow. So lead gen, we need emotional permission to lead generate. Because most people on the team, they are there because some of them are there because they need something now. They need a deal today. Think about this in relationship to, now let's come back to us. I want us to keep on going back to our people and then us, people and then us. Think about your relationship to investment in people, your buyer's agent, that new agent, that ops person, a personal assistant, right? Like, interestingly enough, if we don't see that our time spent, our investment in them is significant or can be significant, think about my time and here today. The fact is you each, I have to believe that you are significant. Fair? I have to. to say, okay, then I'm going to invest time today to help have impact on the future of this small group's businesses. It's emotional permission. Otherwise, what would I be doing? I'd be going trying to knock down a house to sell, list a house, buy a house, right? Our relationship with people, our investment in people is based on us having belief that they are going to be significant in our business. He says we can't create more time in a given day, but we can multiply our time in the future. So, you know, I shared in my video that we're going to talk about time because I bet all of us would love some more. I bet all of us need just a little bit more, but no one is going to get more today, but we absolutely can multiply our time in the future. And he gives a really great example in his book, guys. Who here uses bill pay? Probably most of us, right? Bill pay, right? Just it's just automatically getting paid, right? Now, I'll be honest. I was the guy for a long time that didn't use it. Why? Because where was I going to carve out 2 or 3 hours to sit online with some dumb banking, right, website and put in all my account numbers and find them and put like, it just takes time. So what would I do? The bill came in, like I'm anal about that, but the bill came in, I'd hop on that night and I'd go to Chase and I'd pay the bill. The next bill would come in, I'd pay the bill. And when you look at that, I would probably spend, I don't know, 30, 40 minutes every month collectively. It was only 3 minutes here, 4 minutes there, 5 minutes there, but I would spend about 30 minutes, right, every month on just paying these dumb bills. But Bill Pay came along and said, hey, listen, spend 2 hours today setting that all up and I'll save 30 minutes this month. Why don't we do it? It's the 2 hours. It's the 2 hours that one day that you have to block off. But notice what happens. How many months does it take for me to recoup my 2 hours if it took me 30 minutes a month to pay those bills? How many months? 4. In 4 hours, I have broken even. And on month 5, I start receiving an ROTI, a return on time invested. Time is no different than money, guys. Like, I never have extra time laying around. Most of us don't have extra money laying around. Like, it doesn't lay around. However, you create extra money by setting aside that money and invest it, right? You take this money and you say, gosh, I'm going to sacrifice by not buying that TV or that new car or that dumb gadget, and I'm going to invest this $300. I'm going to invest this $1,000. I'm going to invest this $5,000, right? And you put that in the bank. And over time, that investment turns out pretty good. It's the same with our time. So as we look at our business, I promise you, there are things that you and your people do every day, every week, every month. And my challenge to each of us as business owners is to begin writing out what are the things that you consistently do. What are all the things that you say, well, gosh, it's easier for me to do this. It's easier for me to do this than train someone else. And you're right, it always will be, because we haven't internalized the return on time invested. The ROTI. See, I take a step back and say, gosh, if it took me 2 hours to train on something that was taking me 30 minutes a month, I got 4 months. 4 months to recoup that time invested. We have many of those in our life. So in his book, he says we need some permissions. And I'm going to go through these with us because all of us need to give ourselves some permissions. We talked about emotional permission, but these are the permissions. Permission number 1 is elimination. We need to give ourselves permission to say no to certain things. That creates time in the future. We say no today, it creates some time in the future, right? Permission to eliminate. Why is permission to eliminate difficult? I want you to think for just a second. There's something in your calendar this week that you're going to do that you don't want to do. And there's a reason why you're doing it, even though you don't want to do it. Why? Why have you not said no?
Because you think it's important, whether it is or isn't.
Okay. Now, Dana agreed. That's one reason. Switch that word important out for what's our new word? significant? Is what we believe important significant? And if it isn't, we need to start eliminating some things. Fair? Why else? Why else do we not eliminate? What are we perhaps scared of?
Chris, we're afraid of letting people down.
Nick, I think you're dead right. Alive right. You're alive right. Yeah, we are afraid of letting people down. We are afraid of hurting people's feelings. We are, humans don't want to let people down nor hurt people, right? Good human beings. Nobody on this call ever wants to do that to someone. And so what do? We say yes. We don't eliminate something that we started. Like I have some things in my calendar, right? I eliminated one today, a very difficult one to eliminate. Something that I've been doing for 4.5 years, every single month on the third Thursday. And it was so hard for me to let down this small group of people, but I realized that it was not significant. Like it wasn't significant for them nor me. So I gave myself permission to eliminate. Permission number 2 is automation. Automate. Automation to your time is what compounding interest is to your money. Automation to your time is what compounding interest is to your money. I'm going to come back to that expression that every good leader has used. It's faster for me to do it myself. Who has said that ever? Raise your hand. It's faster for me to do it myself. I probably say that every day. Now, that is true, absent the significance calculation. So we're going to do a little bit of math. Take out a piece of paper and a pen. The significance calculation has a 30x rule, right? This has been studied across all, like not all, but many industries. Like let's not get carried away. Many industries, and they've looked at activities that people say it's faster for me to do this, so I'll just keep on doing it. It's a 30x rule. Vaden in his book says, consider spending up to 30x the time it takes you to do a task once to train someone else to do it for you. Now, let's put this into practice. And I want us to think this small. If something takes you 5 minutes to do today, every day, let's say, like there are certain things that we do every single day that take us 5 minutes. Fair? Like the 30x rule says, how many minutes are we going to spend training someone to do that? 30x, 30 times 5. How many minutes is that? My math majors?
150.
150. Yes. Yes. My iPhone majors. That calculator app's phenomenal. 150 minutes to train someone else to do it. 30 times 5, 2.5 hours. Do you see why we don't do that? It takes me 5 minutes. 5 minutes. And I'm going to spend 2.5 hours training someone. But the reality is we have 2 lessons here. Yes, that's how long it takes. Now, you try to train someone in how many minutes? 2 minutes to do what takes you 5. That's not fair. Think about all the things we have dropped on people's plate. Our buyer's agent, like, here, this is how you do a search. Like, this is how you set someone up. This is how you do that DocuSign. This is how you, it takes 30 times, that 30x rule is real. It takes 30 times the amount of time it takes you to do something to train someone else to do it. So think about the return on time invested. If you're doing a task 5 minutes every day, right? 5 minutes. Let's say you do that task every working day, 250 working days. By the end of the year, you will spend 1,250 minutes on that one task over the course of a year. How many minutes did it take you to train? 150. Overwhelming at the outset. 2.5 hours to train someone that it takes you 5 minutes to do. But you realize if it's a task you do once a week, well, you'll spend 260 minutes on it. Your return on time invested is 7 months. Are you willing to look for the things in your world that you can get a better return on time invested in? When you look at anybody across any industry and say, hey, how do they do what they do? How do they accomplish? They have been willing to get a return on time invested. They have been willing to train an assistant. They've been willing to train a director of ops. They've been willing to train the buyer's agent. They've been willing to train a listing agent. They have willing to train a personal assistant. They've been willing to train anybody 30x what it took them to do. And maybe their return on time invested is a 2-month return on time invested. Maybe it's a 4-month, maybe it's a 7-month, maybe it's an 8-month. But see, it doesn't matter. If we start today looking for those things, do you see how we're not adding time to our day, but we're multiplying time in our life as many of those tasks that we have trained someone else? If we think about the long term, then we will dedicate time to invest in our talent. If we do not, we will burn out. We don't get burned out putting deals together, do we? We get burned out doing all the little things that it takes, and sometimes big things, but all the things that take supporting what we love to do. Begin your list, guys. I promise you, return on time invested is a massive principle. Now think about this. Let's go to our teams or our people in our world. I think this is a valuable conversation to sit down and ask your director of operations or administrative person, hey, what do you see me doing weekly, daily, that you are certain that you could do or someone else could do? Block off the 30x to train someone the right way for that return on time invested. Now, our buyer's agents and our teams are burned out too. You know why? Because we haven't done our job as leaders. We haven't sat down with our operations team or sat down at home ourselves and said, hey, how do I make the life of my buyer's agent better? Right? What are they doing every single week, every single day? Like, what are they doing that I could train my system, my model, my organization can train someone to do such that I give them a return on their time invested? If you're multiplying someone's time, will they leave you? They will not leave you, right? Because they are able to make more money and have more time. That's like the secret of business. What's interesting is as you do this, the task hasn't changed. The job hasn't changed. The people haven't changed. You haven't changed. The only thing that has changed is our thinking about what we do, how we do it, and the time we do it in. Your thinking has elongated. Significance has shown up. Third permission. Third permission is delegation, right? Not all of us. Some of us have a really difficult time with this. Why do we have a difficult time with delegating, guys? Why do you think? Holding on to things, keeping our hands on things.
We like control.
Okay, gain control. Yep, control. Why is that though? I mean, you're right, but why do we like control?
We know it'll be done right and well.
Yeah, who said that? I didn't see it.
Heather Breimer.
Heather, you are dead on. The reason, here's a secret, guys. Like people say, oh, you have control issues. Like you listen, the reason why we have control issues is because we got here by developing perfection, or as close to it, better, closer to perfection than the majority of a real estate agent or our industry has been able to do. Think about that. You got here by developing perfection, and we will only get to the next level through delegation. We don't have issues with control. We have issues with perfection, wanting things to be done a certain way because we know what it took to get here. This was my biggest hang up for years. I knew, right? I'm going to put this in quotes. I knew that nobody was willing to get back to people as quickly as I was. I knew that nobody was like, right? I was certain that I got to a certain level because of perfection, for making so many of my systems, which was just me, so many of my systems perfect. Nobody here got to where you are by accepting imperfection. Now, we need to embrace things being at times just okay. It's hard for me to even say that, guys. I mean, you guys know me, right? For those of you who know me, do you think it's easy for me to say, at times we need to embrace things just being okay? Ask my children, they will tell you, nope, that doesn't sound like Papa. Like, like that's a challenge for me too. But until we start delegating, we will never grow. Now, over time, if we're willing to invest the time, the 30x, like what do you do perfectly? Does it take you an hour? Let's get 30x. It's going to take you 30 hours to train someone. Now, we get mad, we get frustrated, we like some of us can't handle it when someone does something differently or wrong. First of all, they're always going to do something differently and wrong, especially until the 30 hours have been invested in them. But think of the significance. Over time, they're going to specialize and do it better than you. Andy Stanley, many of you listen to his podcast or have read his books. He's an interesting cat, but Andy Stanley says this, leadership isn't about getting things done right. It's about getting things done through other people. And people are imperfect. People are imperfect. So are you. You just don't know it yet. People are imperfect. The reality is, at times, early, it will be done okay. That was just okay. And do you have to be okay with okay? No, you don't, but you have to allow time for things to be just okay if you're going to delegate. So permission number one, eliminate some things. Permission number two, automate some things. And honestly, that's the tactical part of our call today, guys. I want us to look for things that we can automate. I want us to look for things in our life that are a return on time invested means that we need to dive in and make that happen. I want you to sit down with your buyer's agent. I want you to sit down with your team members. I want you to sit down with your operations team and say, hey, what do you see me doing every single week? What do you see? The day that you get an operations person that says, hey, can I sit down with you? Like, I would say you don't have to read this book, but have your ops team read this book. I did. Have your ops team read this book and say, hey, I want you to look at places in my life as well as our agents' life. The ops team is there to help who? You? No, it's your agents. If you're building a business, it's the value proposition to the agents that you're going to bring into your world, right? If you're running a team. And if you're the agent, fine. They should be doing that for you. I want our operations teams to think about this. Challenge them to come to the table and say, hey, I need to be taught this. I think I can do that. Like, look for things to take off the plate of the buyer's agent, the listing agent, and you as the team lead. It'll eliminate or reduce burnout. So automation was the second permission. And the third permission is delegation. Delegate. Some of us, that's going to be the hardest permission, right? The delegation part. Now, after we are working on those three things, he says we need to ask ourselves a question. Must it be done right now, or can we do it later? I mean, there's very few things that must be done right now, right? But must it be done right now, or can we do it later? If it's now, here's your fourth permission. Permission to concentrate. Permission to concentrate. I'll share something internal. I was in Bellingham the past couple of days, and we flew up. Chris Stewart and Ben Kinney and I were blocked off about 3 days. In quotes, blocked off about 3 days, right? It was supposed to be, no distractions. We're gonna focus on solving some big problems for the future on brokerage side, agent side, everything, right? Because it didn't need to be done right now, we did not give ourselves permission to concentrate for those 3 days. Some of you know that because I was on the call with you, right? So be careful. If it needs to be done right now and you know it needs to be done right now, or you've agreed to do it right now, give yourself permission to concentrate. If it doesn't need to be done right now, give yourself permission to procrastinate, right? Give yourself permission to procrastinate if it doesn't need to be done right now because it isn't significant. Now, I'm going to take a pause. What are your challenges as you hear that? What are your ahas when you hear that? Any immediate like, gosh, I need to do this when you hear that? Who wants to share?
Chris, can I share?
You can.
The 30X and putting a framework around how long it's going to take to train somebody, like that's eye-opening for me. And as I reflect and think about, boy, I've had a small team. I'm a solo agent with a transaction coordinator right now. I'm like, how do I get more administrative help and things off of my desk? I'm conflicted because I say, hey, I have to take that time away back from my production and my business to actually train somebody. How can I leverage with Keller Williams and the systems and models and tools? And what else can I do to get these things in place, get help in place that does the 30X time need to be me physically teaching somebody, or how else can I leverage and how else, like,
yeah,
ways to work through that so it doesn't, not at the expense of like production, or is it?
Well, I took two things I want to address right there. To answer your question, does it need to be me? That is the first question that oftentimes comes in. And I would say this, who does it the most perfectly today? And if it's you, then it needs to be you. If it's you, it needs to be you. And that's because you are certain that by training someone to do it the right way, you will have a return on time invested at a certain point in time in your life. And I think it's good for us to map out what that looks like so your expectations are real. So for instance, if I am going to train, and we should always look for impact, right? So if I'm going to train someone to do something, so let me just use a real random practical example. We're going to show 3 houses or 5 houses. I mean, there's not 5 houses to show, but imagine there was. We're going to go out and show 5 houses. I will tell you, one of the things I never leverage is the route, right? Setting up the homes, the route. Why? Because like I just know it better. Like I know how I like to drive, where I want to drive. And the reality is I would spend what? An hour, let's just call it an hour, setting up the appointments and setting up the route. Now, how many buyers am I going to work with this month? Is it 4, right? Am I going to go on 4 tours, 5 tours, 10 tours? Like it could be 10, which means I'm going to spend 10 hours doing those tours. Well, if I'm going to truly train someone to think how I think, to understand, right, how I want them to interact with the agent, setting up the tours, how to schedule, how quickly I go through homes, what to look at when I'm setting up that tour. Like we think, oh, no one would do it the way that I would do it, and they will. But if it takes me an hour, it's literally going to take me 30 hours to train someone over time how to do that for me. But see, in 3 months, my return on it and time invested is back. Because if I'm spending literally 10 hours a month on that one task, and it took me 30 hours in June, that means by July, August, end of September, I have made my time back. And now I am collecting interest, like exponential interest, compounding interest on those 10 hours. Because what am I going to do with those 10 hours? Something a lot more significant than that tour. Dumb example maybe, but very specific. So I think if unless we chart that out and say, hey, what does that really look like? And when am I going to begin to see that return? We will get really frustrated. We'll stop 10 hours in, we'll stop 15 hours in, right? So I think that return on time invested is really important for us to at least do the math on. Fair? Yeah. Anyone else? I think I said there was 2 points, but I forgot the second.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else as they think about the permissions needed and return on time invested?
Yeah, I have a small team I'm kind of training right now, and it's a little bit difficult as some of the agents are a little green. And so as I'm taking them in, and they're getting more tenured as time goes on, but as I like try to, get things set up and try to create income for them, I'm having a hard time just being like, all right, go do this. And so I'm actually showing up to the first showings with them and then try to like hand them off to the clients at this point is like, so it's almost like the time that I'm putting in to them is like adding on to the time that I'm having to manage a lot of these clients and things right now.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice on how to, kind of get around that as you're just starting your team and things?
No, there is no getting around that.
Okay.
I mean, the fact is that's what building a business is all about. I mean, that's a challenge. And I actually love your question because we try to figure out like, man, how do I get around that? The fact is that the environment that we're in, the business that we're in, to build a business that is built on sales, you will always feel like there's a moment in time where you will go backwards. Why? Because stepping out of sales to run a business is giving up the sale to build a business. So my return on time invested on that buyer's agent is this. Well, let's just use that phrase as a buyer's agent. What is your expectation, or what is your business's expectation of the number of deals a year that buyer's agent will do? Forget the first year, but year 2. What is the expectation? Are they going to do 2 deals a month? Right? So how long are you going to invest in that human being and training them how to do 1 deal or 2 deals or 3 deals, right? In the first 2 or 3 or 6 or 10, like in fact, if we build the relationship with that person, your return on time invested in that human is wild. It's one of the greatest. It's why this business is amazing. And if we thought about it as a business, we would realize that our obligation to the business is, how do I find a talented agent, invest in them like they really should be invested in, because your return on time invested of them doing 22 deals a month, the first 3 months, the first 6 months even, it may not feel good, right? Why? Because you could sell a lot more houses in the 150 hours that you'll have invested into that agent. Like, think about what you did in 150 hours, but now look at the return on time invested when they do 24 deals next month. Next year, 36 deals next year. Like, we have to have an expectation of our people and know how many hours it takes based on our program to get that agent launched. Now, there are ways to leverage, Dane, the coaching and training and development of agents, but that comes much later. Like, right, our platform is such that, hey, let me leverage that for you because we have a system to coach and train and onboard an agent. And the minute that we're able to do that, we look at that as a return on time invested. But today, launching a business, moving from being a salesperson to a business owner, that's the trade. The trade is immediate income. And it's why most of us don't do that well, because the trade on the ridiculous income that we make as a salesperson, because we have perfected the real estate sale, man, that's hard to give up. Who wants to give up a couple $100,000 a year?
Right.
The untold story of I literally force my way into $1 million real estate team, right? By sheer, I'm going to do what it takes. I'm going to sell a lot of houses. I'm going to list a lot of houses. I'm going to work with buyers. Like, I forced my way in. The year that I realized that I had to actually go back and really develop some people at a higher level, my personal income went backwards, right? And forget the million because that's stupid, but it's all relative, right? My personal income went backwards a few $100,000. If I was not willing to do that, right, by spending time outside of sales, then I would never have broken through that $1 million thing. Same as with 100, 200, 300,000, it doesn't matter what, but it is that's that moment, Dane and Amy and Zach and Jason. It's that moment that we internalize what that return on time invested is. And I think it's why I needed and wanted to have the conversation with this group about the significance calculation, and to move our mind away from important and urgent and move to like, how long will this matter? See, to me, selling a house, it matters, well, as long as it takes for that home to close. But developing a human, that impact is in my world, I hope it's forever. I hope we're business partners forever, right? I hope our business partners for the next 3, 5, 7, 10 years. So my significance there is way more important. There.
Hey,
Let's
Chris,
just talk about, oh, go ahead.
on that same, so investing in your people and then helping them grow, and is there a point at which you look at that relationship, and if they've reached a ceiling or they're not like, how do you know when you need to exit that relationship? Like, any thoughts of wisdom about that? If somebody's just not hitting the mark, like, how do you know when to stop investing in them?
Can I add to that and ask one to expand and bring on more?
Those are two.
90 days. That's it.
What's that, Jason?
When I bring someone on a team, they got 90 days. They got 90 days to prove themselves, to complete a 30, 60, 90, to do 2 things, finish our training and get at least 1 pending or closed transaction. If they can't do that within 90 days, we don't work together. It's not a personal decision, it's a business decision. You just got to set standards.
Yeah, so I would add to that. I mean, I believe in that first 90 or that first 100 days, those first 3 months, you will be able to see whether or not you have someone that you are willing to invest because you believe that they are going to give you a return on time invested, right? So we have a launch as well, just like Jason, and we expect that by coming out of that launch, you're gonna have 3 pieces of business, right? And if you don't, then my question is, I know the systems work, I know the activities work, so why is it? Did you show up and we need to develop skill? Then I'm going to continue developing skill with you. But that first 100 days, we all need a grit test. And we're going to actually, interestingly enough, our next conversation is going to be about that word grit. But we need that grit test to know whether or not it makes sense to continue investing time in someone. I believe if someone's willing to work hard, then we all have the capability of developing skill, because working hard is learning and developing skill, and actually then just doing the work, right? Doing the hard work of what it takes to be a real estate agent. So my answer to that is, you should never be 8 months, 11 months, 14 months into a relationship wondering how to get out of a relationship, or wondering if it matters to them to be successful at what they're doing. And I think that's where many of us get to, because we didn't have an expected ROTI on the agent on the team, or we look around our team and we have wildly different performance ratings, and not because they would choose to have wildly different performance ratings, they just do. Cool. Which might mean we have to go back and say, hey, what does that process look like? How are we launching? Have we given them the 30x? Like, have we dedicated the time and investment into making sure that they are significant? Now let's talk a little bit about where a lot of people are, and some of our agents are right now, and that's they're burned out right now. Why does burnout happen?
Time management.
People get frustrated with lack of results, feel like they're running in place.
Doing the wrong things for the wrong people.
Hamster wheel.
All of those things. All of those things. There are 2 things that can help prevent it and deal with it. And actually, they come from Angela Duckworth's definition of grit. Now, don't use that word. I mean, don't use that word when someone's burned out. You don't look at someone that's burned out and say, gosh, you just need more grit, right? But I mean, some of us would say that, like that's what we want to say. But the definition of grit is perseverance and passion. Perseverance and passion. Oftentimes, the perseverance is there, and that's what's led to the burnout, but the passion around what they're doing has left, or has been forgotten. And so we're persevering without the passion equals burnout. Very rarely will burnout show up if both of those are there. And it doesn't mean that you won't be tired. Guys, there have been days in the last month or two that for the first time in a very long time, I said, I think I'm tired. But it doesn't mean that I'm burned out. It just means I'm tired. Why? Because I am willing to persevere through pretty much anything. And I have passion for what I'm doing each and every day. If we lose one of those, if you have passion and you're not willing to persevere, well, that's a problem. You probably don't have burnout. But most burnout shows up when you had both and one got forgotten. Here's what can help. When people begin to lose passion, it's because they are not connecting the day-to-day with what the plan was, what the preferred future was, what the goal was. Angela Duckworth has gotten, has become sort of a household name after her book Grit came out, but she also has gotten a lot of heat for that word grit. And by going out and saying, hey, just some people are gritty and some people aren't. And so she's done a lot of research, probably more research than she did pre-book than she has post-book. And I bet you probably in the next year or two, you'll see her do another book around to add a level to her learning around grit. But she recently interviewed a sociologist. His name is Dan Champlis. And Dan is known because all his studies involve swimmers. And I don't know if we have any swimmers on the call. I think we have maybe 2 or 3 that I know of. But he worked with swim teams at all levels, from the Olympic level to what he calls the around the corner swim team, right? The swim team down at the local pool. He worked at all levels. And he said the only difference, swimming is swimming, he said. Strokes are strokes, he said. Like real estate is real estate, guys. Like a buyer is a buyer, a seller is a seller. He said the only difference is the mundane. He said it's the commitment to become better in tiny ways that makes someone the local swim team or the Olympic swim team. Like if you look at what they do, they train for the same amount of time, they jump in the pool the same, like they do a lot of the same things, but it's excellence in the mundane. And he said, no one will ever want to be excellent in the mundane unless they have passion for what they're doing. And that's a challenge in our industry. Because some of the things that need to get done, how do you have passion for that? Like, how do you find passion for the mundane? Unless we truly understand what our role is and how our role connects to the outcome of what we're doing, we won't have passion for it. The people that are willing to blitz through burnout, it's because they're wildly passionate about delivering this American dream of homeownership. They're wildly passionate about seeing their clients develop wealth and build wealth through real estate. They're wildly passionate about what it means to own a home, to invest in real estate. Like there has to be a connection to that. And I actually believe that some of our people on our teams or within the office get too far disconnected from the purpose of what our businesses do. And therein lies burnout. Passion is a commitment that comes from having interest in what they do. If our people are experiencing burnout, it's time to have a conversation around what it is that we do. And if there's passion for delivering that to our consumer or our customer. This is one of the hardest sales jobs of any product you will ever sell. The good news is, guys, we're not selling cell phone plans that really don't change someone's world or impact their life. The good news is we happen, by choice or by circumstance, have fallen into a sales job with one of the most important financial decisions and self-worth decisions, taking care of family decisions of any industry. After selling hundreds of homes, you may lose touch with that. And it's important that we don't. So how do we have a conversation with our team members. Angela says, here's the steps to get back your passion. Number one, have curiosity conversations. If you feel like you're standing in one place, like you're a potted plant right now, you have to begin to have curiosity conversations outside of your garden, she says. You have to be willing to engage with people like that are on this call and say like, gosh, how do you keep going? Or how have you built what you've built? Or how are your people still enjoying what they're doing? Like, you have to have curiosity conversations. So have those. Like the challenge right now isn't that we're working too hard. The challenge is our heads have been down running, and we haven't had those conversations amongst ourselves because we've been disconnected. We haven't been in the office. Like we have lost some of the curiosity conversation, but it's happened on our teams too. You got to bring them back, guys. You got to start having those conversations again. Have curiosity conversations. Number two, she says, reflection. Really ask like, hey, what are you really interested in? If you see someone on your team that seems burned out, ask them, what do you, I had a conversation recently with a partner, and I said, like, what do you really like to do? Like, what did you love? Because if we reflect on what we love, now the answer might be, Chris, I don't know. Gosh, I don't know. Then the follow-up is, well, then what's boring to you? What don't you like to do? Sometimes those right now in burnout are easier to recognize or identify. Fine. You're going to put together a list of things that you don't like to do or what's boring to you so that you can then realize what's left. So first it's curiosity conversations, then it's a bit of reflection. And then you know what she says to avoid or break out of burnout? At that moment that we're burned out, what do we want to do? Nothing. Like we need to disconnect. And she said, at that moment, do anything. Take action. Right? Curiosity, conversation, reflection, take action. We have to have these conversations with our people, or if this is us, we have to find that person, that coach, that mentor, that team lead, that to be able to say, hey, I'm struggling here. Like, can we have a conversation about that? And I promise you, look around, like every single one of us has someone on this call that you can reach out to. Maybe that's me. I'll have that conversation with you guys. I mean that seriously. But see, our hope and intention and our goal in these calls is for us to have them. And then for us to realize that, gosh, that's what I need to be for my team and organization as well. Like we're learning to be better leaders by taking a step back and saying, hey, how do I procrastinate on purpose? How do I go through that significance conversation? How do I give myself permission to eliminate, to automate, to delegate, to concentrate, and then to procrastinate if so be it? How do I identify why my burnout is here? Have I been having curiosity conversations? If I haven't, who isn't in my organization, right? How do I reflect on what I enjoy doing versus what bores me? And what can I do today such that I take action and don't get stuck in that doing nothing burnout phase? I think we can all be there, guys. We can all be there. Thoughts, ahas, anything you want to share before the top of the hour? Then I will. I just want to say I appreciate you guys showing up. It'd be really lonely if no one showed up. And I mean that. Because I recognize that having a conversation in an environment that we're all in around this is difficult. It's difficult to take that time away. It's difficult to, like, you could be selling a house right now. I realize that every hour, there are some people on this call that could take every hour of the day and go and sell a house. So basically you have given me a commission out of your pocket to spend time with, and just know that I want these conversations, these calls, and this monthly time together to mean something. Much of this call was built on feedback from you guys. So along the way, if you're struggling with something, reach out to Via, reach out to Leslie, reach out to me, reach out to Ben and say, hey, can we frame the conversation around this? And then many of us are having weekly, right, subgroups and sub masterminds as well. Bring those topics to the table. It's important for us right now to make sure that we become better business owners. And that was the purpose of our monthly call together, to take this, to become a better business owner. And in the meantime, right, between that month, if you need something, and I mean that, everybody here should have my cell phone, call me, text me, email me, reach out to your local leadership. Like we are here to help our real estate agents become business owners. So thanks for your time, guys. Appreciate you.